Woohoo! We are live,
You
fresh
did it.
on the live podcast. All right. So in the meantime, I'm just gonna grab the YouTube link for us, just so we can invite our Nomad friends. That's great, right? So I'm just gonna multitask right now. Like some digital nomads really suck at that. I semi. So, welcome. So this is going to be, it's an experiment, and I love it because I love experiments. I always talk about it on the Digital Nomads Daily Podcast that, this whole lifestyle is one big experiment. And I'm so grateful that Kristin is here today with me to join the experiment and to just go for it, because sometimes as nomads, you just need to like kind of go for it and do it and then see what happens.
And I love how you just referred to this lifestyle as a giant experiment because I really agree with that. And I think if anyone's open to experimenting, it's those of us who take on this lifestyle, right? Because it
Absolutely.
is just like jumping into something new and different and like seeing how it evolves as we live it.
Absolutely. And I really love that about also chatting with you guys on the podcast. Just like in our private conversations as well, because we put so much pressure on, like, oh, we need to achieve and we need to do this and we need to do that. And even in a nomad lifestyle, oh, we need to travel so many countries, or oh, I haven't been to this place yet. But I'm like, let's just chill a little bit. It's like it's really nice if we can just experiment it and just experience it and then just go through it and with a complete open mind and then just learn.
Yes, I so agree. And right now, I'm currently experimenting with like a new phase of this lifestyle of quicker travel, which relates to one of the topics we mentioned about today, which is slow versus fast, right, or quicker. And out of like the travel path for two weddings I had to travel quicker. And so I was like, well, I'll treat it like an experiment because I've been like the advocate for slow, intentional travel, which is how I like to travel. But it's like keeping an open mind of seeing, like, okay, let's see how this feels quickly. I'm not used to it. It's not my typical choice, but like, it's like I have to get to these places at these times to be on this special day for people close to me. So let's see how this goes.
Absolutely. I love that you pointed out. I love that you mentioned that. So, what we can do is, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Then, in the meantime, I'm going to make sure that everyone is going to get the email to make sure that they know that we're live, because obviously there's always technical stuff going on. And, like we said, it's an experiment. So, we keep on smiling and we're just going for it. But in the meantime, you can introduce yourself and, yeah, share with our audience,
Yes,
like, who are you? What are you all about?
I love the multitasking. So I'm Kristin. I've been on the podcast and am so grateful to meet Nina here and to um, just for us to connect on our philosophies around this lifestyle. But I'm a remote career and lifestyle coach, supporting others building this lifestyle in the most fulfilling way. So finding remote work and building the lifestyle in the way that is most fulfilling to them, because that looks unique for us all. As we just started to talk about the slow versus quick, it can be part-time or full-time. It can be kind of in one country or traveling amongst a lot of countries. So there's just so many ways to live this lifestyle. So I really believe that that looks unique for each person, and that if any lifestyle, this is the most dynamic in how you can live it. And so helping others to uncover what is most fulfilling for them. And I'm super excited to talk more about it. And I feel like we share a lot of philosophies around the lifestyle, and just how it's always evolving for us all as we enter new environments. And yeah, so I'm excited to chat more.
Love it, love it.
How are we doing?
Yeah, we're good. We're like still trying to send this baby out. Tech is absolutely with us, but I've done this so many times. So at one point, you just are like, okay, we're just gonna go with it. I'm not gonna put too much pressure on myself. I'm just clicking slowly through everything just to make it sure. So we're a few minutes late, but hey.
All good. We're flexible here.
All good in the hood. All good in the hood. Well, I do want maybe we can actually talk a little bit about like how you started your digital nomad lifestyle, because as you said, you were on the podcast last year and I love that you were there. We connected so well ever since. I cannot even believe that we're going to meet each other very soon. For me, that's just like mind blowing. But maybe some people who are watching right now, they don't know you yet. So why don't you start with like how you became a digital nomad, and yeah, how it just all started for you.
Yeah, so uh, it all started for me as an expat. So my journey wasn't, many people seek out this lifestyle, especially now, given that more and more attention with the world shifting to remote has been brought to this lifestyle. But initially, I moved abroad to Buenos Aires after doing some solo travel and discovering that I really wanted to live in Latin America. And I found a job in Buenos Aires to move abroad. I hadn't yet been to Argentina. I had traveled through Central America and discovered like how beautiful Latin America was, how much I was learning through travel and learning based on learning the language. Spanish has always been a passion and a language I really wanted to gain fluency in. So moving abroad, I settled in to Buenos Aires and worked at a local job and discovered that I didn't want to be tied to a 9 to 5 in a cubicle. I wanted to get out and explore more of this beautiful country I entered. So it kind of evolved as to like, okay, so now I'm here in this new country, but I'm working long hours in a role that wasn't aligned for me. And I knew those weren't the intentions I had moving abroad. It was to immerse in the culture, to travel, to learn the language. And I felt like I wasn't getting those intentions with the current job I was in. So part of why I became a career coach was a lot of career transitions. This was another huge one that happened to me in a foreign country. And I decided to leave the job so that I could go fully remote to embrace more travel. So by doing that and going remote, I started to use Buenos Aires as a home base and to go to other countries, starting with Bolivia. So it evolved into this lifestyle. And then with the pandemic, I chose to leave the country to head home for a short period. And then that brought me to Mexico. And so I started to travel more throughout Mexico. So it was really interesting how the journey organically evolved into becoming a nomad, just based on kind of the intentions for why I moved abroad and the passion for travel. And then it's funny how we have expat, nomad, all these different labels, but I just kind of took on this new identity through kind of the journey of that evolution.
Love it, love it. And actually, we're very similar, you know that, because I didn't know about becoming an expat, but I was studying abroad, and then I went to the Philippines because I wanted to like go to Asia, and that was not part of my study program. So when I graduated, I went to the Philippines. I found a job there, a local job in a local tech startup. And yeah, I just started there. And from living in the Philippines, I was able to travel in Asia and just really go to different places. And it was actually Bali where I was a little bit burned out, and my friend invited me to Bali, and I saw everyone there and their laptops in the cafe. And it was funny because I was doing that too, but I kind of didn't realize it. So I was like, hey, what are they doing? I didn't know there were so many of us. And then, and then it all happened. King Chai is joining us too. Hey, buddy. Just not today.
Nice. Yeah, no, that is. And so it sounds like for you, it also kind of evolved through you living abroad, working and seeing more, embracing the lifestyle. Yeah.
Absolutely. And actually, it's very different now, because when I was in that time, so this is like years ago, it wasn't like how it is now, that you kind of buy the lifestyle almost. You know what I mean? It's like on Instagram, you're literally like going and you're like, ooh, this is nice. I want to do this too. Where can I buy my ticket? What visa do I need? Well, like, how do you make money online? Like that's like really what's going on right now. But I feel like when we did this, there was no like information load on how to do it.
Yeah. I so agree. And I think that's like the whole movement and awareness growing, and just how many more resources there are now for the community. It's just really amazing and how quickly it's evolving. And I feel like every day when I see like a new tool or something in the making, and it's like, wow. And it's that's really great about it too, is because there's so many things making this life easier and supporting others to build it.
Absolutely. And that's also why we're here today, right? So I started the Digital Nomads Daily and the podcast. Well, the podcast itself, I started last year, and you were like, Chai, go away. So everyone, I have a nomad cat, King Chai. This is him. Hi. No, you're not.
We have another guest.
Chai always joins the podcast, and you can hear him on the background. I'm just like, yeah, I mean, it's a travel podcast. It's a nomad cat. What can I do? He's hungry all the time. He likes to chat. Like me. Anyhow, yeah, so I started Digital Nomads Daily, and especially the podcast, to shine some light on how people like you do it, because what our journey is very similar, but still there are a lot of unique abilities around that, and it's just really cool to hear how other people doing it. And then also I love asking like those questions about the day-to-day life, like how do you deal with this, how do you deal with that when you go to a new location, how do you even pick a location, or love, entrepreneurship, everything. So we actually have some questions prepared also for this stream, for this episode today, because we have been doing this together, and we were like, okay, let's ask some questions so we can actually answer the questions, the burning questions that people have about the digital nomad lifestyle. So this is your chance. If you're in this live stream right now, if you're on the podcast listening later on, because we're going to publish this on the Digital Nomads Daily Podcast too, you can always send me or Kristin a DM. But if you're here right now live with us, this is your chance, guys. And we can like literally answer the question right away. As we're here, we can see it in the chat, so you can drop them there. And like I said, we have prepared a few questions, which is great, because we asked people like, hey guys, like, what do you want to know? So let's start with the first question from Ivan. I think his name is Ivan. So this one is very hard. So we're starting with a very tough question. Texas, how to sort this out, and insurance. Oui.
So is this one referring to nomad insurance or general?
Yeah, it doesn't say it, but what we can say is this. At least how I would like to approach this is this. Like, we are no tax consultants. That's one thing. So we cannot tell you how to deal with your taxes. On top of that, even if you would listen to other people, keep in mind that every person on this planet has its own tax situation. So that means that if you're from Spain, it looks very different if you're from the US, especially with US citizens. Like, there's a lot of like stuff around that. My recommendation is talk to someone that knows about this. There's one nomad in the space. Sorry, her name is Kathy. She was on the podcast as well about NGO giving back project that she did. But she knows a lot about this. She has a course on taxes and how to incorporate your business and all these kinds of things. But I guess the moral of the story is that you can't not pay taxes. Like, you need to have a setup. If you're in a remote job and you want to, or if you're in a job and you want to go remote, there are companies that help other companies with like tax stuff. So Oyster, Dale, remotely, I think. So those companies do that. But I think so far tax, like, that's how it goes. But know your stuff. And really know what applies in your country of residence. And then with insurance, well, if you don't travel without an insurance, that is just stupid. I'm just going to say it. I mean, we do unfiltered stuff here, right? And I mean, I understand it from a point of view when you're budget traveling or when you're just new to this. But honestly, I am so lucky and so grateful that nothing crazy happened to me, but I did get in a scooter accident when I was living in Bali. Somehow I got like a cab came into my scooter, I tumbled and all of that, and I had a few scratches on my ankle and one on my shoulder, and that's it. But I literally could have broken my whole face. I think that could have happened, and that was partly also my fault. But then I also hear a lot of stories, people that are traveling, they get shit stolen, they get hurt by someone else in an accident, and then they don't have insurance. that's a really big problem. And there are our friends, Nomad, Insured Nomad, Safety Wing. They take care of us. Like there's insurance. They do great. They know what we need. So
Yeah, there's so many options for Nomad insurance. So and like you said, it's so important to have. So looking into those options like Insured Nomad, Safety Wing, Genki. I'm actually writing a blog on this for others to help. It's a lengthy one, so it's taking time. But I feel like it's a space that like people need support because knowing how to start, what type of insurance, like you can't tell someone what insurance is best for them. Each person has to navigate the plan and speak to the experts to figure out what's best for you. But the key is it's important to have it. And like you said, for accidents like that, it's key to have when you're traveling. And also, if you're living internationally, what I'm including this is international health insurance. So
yeah,
I've actually, when moving to Argentina, that's what I started with before I knew about all the different Nomad insurance options, so that I could have coverage not just in Argentina, but when I would go home to visit the US if something were to happen. So another thing to look at is international health insurance plans. If you're living this lifestyle more full time and you're out of the country really frequently, that's a really good plan to look into. One is called GeoBlue. I used to be with them and I just switched to Cigna to give it a try. So there's different options for that also.
absolutely.
And then quickly going back to taxes, I would say this is another, like, getting support from experts. If you don't have the time and need that extra support, always recommended. I actually work with a Nomad tax company that helps me with my taxes each year because traveling and moving around, it was so much more complex than when I was just in San Francisco. So getting support from like a tax company that specializes for nomads is always a good idea.
Absolutely. And I think that applies to anything in life. Like, honestly, if you don't know how to figure it out, like Marie Forleo always says, like, everything is figure outable, but that's true. Like, there are people specialized in everything and anything on this planet. So there is an answer somewhere. And if you don't have the energy, the patience, the motivation, whatever it is, that's okay. Like, you don't have to beat yourself up for that. Just go for it, find the resources, and that's it. And then you can ask questions. And also with the insurance, just one more thing. What I do is that I have an insurance that covers certain parts of the world, but for example, not the US, not Singapore, because for sure I'm not traveling to those countries, and that would really bring up my insurance bill. But if I do travel to those countries, because somehow that happens, I can get like an add-on for the time I'm there. So my general bill is not like full on globally. I have the option to do that, but I don't do it because otherwise I pay a lot more on the yearly bill, whereas I'm not even traveling to those countries.
Yeah, and that's again, it's so customizable, like you're doing based on your situation. So navigating it and speaking with experts to make sure you have it set up so you're not paying a huge premium. So just looking really to those resources and talking to different insurance companies to find out what best fits for you.
Absolutely. I see that Elio is leaving. Thanks so much for joining. If you want to continue listening later on, this is going to be on the Digital Nomads Daily Podcast, so you don't have to miss out on anything. So let's move forward to another question. And actually, this is a question that you can answer because you know a lot about job seekers. So this is a question from Za. Is it possible to become a nomad working in HR? I don't see much offer in that field. I think you're going to have a very good answer to this, Kristin.
Yes, it's so possible. And I see job postings daily in HR, and HR is my industry. From career coach, I was a recruiter, I've worked in the HR field, and I'm always looking out at job postings and supporting clients and targeting HR roles as well. And they are out there. It's just looking in the right places to find those roles and then really targeting them and setting yourself up for success, interviewing and applying for those roles. But I'm here to tell you it's so possible. They're out there, from HR operations to recruiting. It's getting clear on what in HR you're passionate about and what skills you need to build to get there, and really applying and targeting it. But yes, it exists, and it is so possible to do remote.
Absolutely. And actually, when Kristin was on the podcast, this is also what we talked about, right? Like also remote jobs and Design Your Own Life. We have episodes with Jordan about this, with Juliana, with Michelle. Michelle's coming back to the podcast. So there are for sure rules, but I think what's very good that you pointed out is that you need to know where in HR, because HR field, like I'm going to running remote next week, and that is going to be a lot of HR folks there talking about people management, people operations, culture, employer branding, and all of that is also connected to HR. So, you might even pivot. Hey, Chris is here actually. That's so nice. Chris is from Insured Nomads. Chris, we were just chatting about that it's important that you have insurance. So love you here.
We just gave you all a shout out on here.
Exactly. All right, so we have another question here. SIM cards. So it's actually not a question, but it's just SIM card. I guess the question is, how do you deal with this?
And honestly, great question, because I just started traveling from Argentina and I had a local SIM card and I landed in Puerto Rico and was like, okay, I need to navigate this. Like, time to try out an eSIM card. So I was like scrambling on my Wi-Fi to find an eSIM card, which I've only used kind of local SIMs traveling in Latin America because it's been really easy to land in a new place and get a local SIM card. Going to a local provider, like Claro is huge in Latin America. But landing in Puerto Rico and being in the US and going to Europe now, I was like, it's time to try out an eSIM. So I'm using Airalo currently, and I actually think, aside from having some hiccups when I was getting registered, I would say it's working out really well, and I'm really impressed with eSIMs. And so I would say for everyone traveling, eSIMs are a good idea. And I see we have a question in there, but we'll get to that in a second. But curious about your take on SIM cards.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to pop the question here for us so we can see it. Thank you, Julieta, for asking. Okay, so the SIM card thing, I was actually cleaning up my pouch right now, right? Because I had so many SIM cards. This is crazy. I don't know how many, I can't, I think it was 11 or something. Because sometimes the SIM card expires or I forgot the code and I don't. Such a messy person with this, but I have a pouch with all my Nomad stuff. So this is travel passes when I was in Tokyo, like that kind of stuff. It's way expired. I think my travel pass even for the Netherlands expired already. Like, so I need to redo all of this. And now I'm like, ooh, yeah, I need a SIM card. But what I can say about SIM cards, and this is something I do, which is kind of important. There's a SIM card that you would need for local local things, right? Like when you're in the country, especially with internet. Like if you have calls, let's say you have a job interview because you're going to interview for a HR job, right? It's good to have a local SIM card in case your internet doesn't work. But I also have my sort of main SIM card in my phone, and if my phone gets stolen, that's not great because this SIM card is connected to my bank, to like stuff like that. So what I try is to separate that. So I do have one SIM card more for my admin life, and then one SIM card which is the local SIM card. And in my phone you can have two, so that's a really good solution.
Yeah, that's awesome. One thing I will say as an alert to people is when I was in Peru, I had a local SIM card and I didn't close it out before leaving the country. And when I left, I discovered that I couldn't close it out from a distance. So I was talking with a friend there, like trying to see if they could go into the provider and help me to close it out. And literally, they were going to have to get a notarized paper to close out my account. So I have this open phone account that I can't close, but it was like a prepaid SIM. So it's all complicated. But my lesson was, and to share with others, is when you do some of these local data plans, make sure you know to ask if you need to close it out before leaving the country. Because I hadn't needed to do that before and kind of learned that the hard way. And it's funny how you say you have your collection, because same. And also the changing numbers. Sometimes I just like leave WhatsApp because I don't want my number to keep changing as you're changing countries. So lots of things that I've learned from kind of changing SIM cards super frequently.
I love that. All right, so I'm just gonna show Juliet this question one more time. So, this is about how do we do it with visas? Yeah, so visas, yeah, it really depends on each country, and honestly, this is a little bit challenging. I think we could have like a full live
Mhm.
on this. I think it depends if you're part of a company. I recently interviewed the former people leader of Airbnb. Like, what? This is crazy. The episode was out this week, and he was talking about this, about the risk and all of that. So if you work for a public company like Airbnb, like those kind of folks, then you really got to talk to your company about this, because there is, it's very very difficult. If you are a
Mhm.
solopreneur, you have your own business set up, you can go into that, you can go to the country, but it's kind of, it's really hard to do it right. I honestly, I don't have the answer. I do check options for like how long can I stay. If I know I want to stay longer in the country, for example, Brazil, I knew I was going to stay here more or less longer than the tourist visa. So I had to find a way to stay longer, and I found that. So this is also maybe the misconception that nomads just go, they don't care, let's see what happens. But you do got to plan a little bit, because if you get in trouble, that really, really sucks.
Yes, so true. And I so agree that it's country by country. Like you really have to do your research before each country to know length of stay, know your visa options. It's so dynamic, it's shifting. Digital nomad visas are emerging and they have different
Mhm.
regulations in each country and different requirements. So it's really just, and this is just like your digital nomad checklist, like before entering a place, doing that research on visa options as well. But it is like a really, I would say, one of the most complex areas of this lifestyle.
Absolutely, yeah. Visa, and also about the digital nomad visas. I think it's good to we touch a little bit about it on this. Or so what I think with these visa stuff is that yes, there are a lot of digital nomad visas or visas that are that have this label digital nomad visa, but the problem is that they're not always so nomad friendly. And just because it is a digital nomad visa, you still really got to look into it. Like, what? How does this work? There are some companies specialized in this. So there's Remote Citizen, nice Citizen Remote. I always mix it up. What is it?
Citizens remote, we had it.
Thank you. I always mix it up. But that company is. We had an episode with them with Tim. It was a really really great episode. We talk about these visa things, and they actually help with these kind of things globally. So that means that they're basically a bridge between you and the visa, and they have like partnerships with other agents like local. And I would say if you have a country in mind that you have been before and you want to stay longer, or if you think that you want to stay longer in a country, maybe you can go there first on a tourist visa, feel the vibe, check it out. If you're absolutely in love with it, then make that decision. Okay, what is my next step? Sometimes you can do a student visa. That's a really great option. I know in Brazil that a lot of people do that. Now they have
Mm.
that visa. So yeah, like, but the visas are a little bit difficult. I'm sorry that we can't really answer this more on the visa front, but because we are not specialized in visas. But it's something that we can actually bring back to also this format. So I'm definitely going to take note of that. Perhaps we should have like a full stream on that. We do have another question, and this is I can okay I click here, I can show it. I love this. I can just show the comment. All
Yeah,
right.
I love it.
Marita is saying, do you see many families with younger living a digital life? Oh, I love this question because I had a podcast interview yesterday. It's not published yet. Spoiler. So this is with Erin, and she has a book called Digital Nomad Moms. It's a collection of stories with other digital nomad moms, and we have dedicated a full episode on this. Like, how do you do that? And I asked the questions about how do you do it with like school, location, all these things? But I'm curious, Kristen, do you, I mean, we both don't have kids, but what is your thought on this in general? Like, Do
I
you?
mean, I love that it's growing. I love that you did an episode. I really want to listen to that because sometimes I laugh and I'm like, oh my gosh, like navigating this lifestyle for one can have so many complexities. Like I so respect nomad families because you're doing this with a partner and your children, but I think it's also super beautiful to raise children in the lifestyle, immersing into different cultures and countries and just that like worldliness, language immersion, all the pieces from a young age. Like if I could go back and have my family bring me into this lifestyle then so I could be like trilingual now and you know um, I think that it's just a beautiful way to raise children, so I love to see the different emerging families and just so much respect for how they navigate it because it does have its challenges.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I was just I also when I yesterday when I was on with Aaron, like I was so curious about that. But one of the things that really surprised me, and not just Aaron, it's also leaders like Rowena. She's also like part-time nomading with her family. And I had a few other people. I had the guy Marcus from Boundless Life on the podcast, and we talk about that. I had a couple on the podcast, two girls. They have their son, so cute. They're traveling around, like, and it's. I really love these kind of episodes because it's so far away from how I'm currently living my nomad life. But when I listen to that, I'm like, oh, it's possible. You can do it. A few quick tips that I have just from these episodes: make sure that you have your finances in place. Not saying you need to have a ton of money, but financial security in general is very important in this lifestyle. So especially when you're traveling with your partner, with your pet, with your kids, like when more people are involved, this becomes more and more important. So financial security, I guess you really want to go to places where it's good for your kid as well. So can they play with other kids? Can you maybe get someone taking care of your kid while you do work? Those kind of things. Maybe if you are a gay couple like the one that I interviewed, they would really look at places where they can go where it's friendly for them. Not everywhere that's the case. So those are kind of like things. When it comes to schooling, there's this thing called, I learned this yesterday, World Homeschooling. I believe it's like an organization that has a lot of information about this, and it's not just for expat families. Like they don't market it so much to like digital nomad families, which they probably will do soon, I guess. But something like that is very smart. And then also Aaron was talking about that there are many groups, just like we have groups online on digital nomads. I don't know, Buenos Aires, like something like that. You have that for families too. So definitely seek out communities, online communities. Those are the tips that Aaron gave me. So you got already the tips before the episode launched. All right, so this one is a short stream because it's an experiment, like we said. I think maybe next time I should just do it an hour because I feel like there are more things that we can talk about. So I guess that's a lesson for next time. Like maybe we should do it a little bit longer. But I would love to give the opportunity for maybe one or two more questions.
It looks like we have another.
Okay, cool. So if we have two. All right, Tio is here. He's wondering two things. Okay, so where do you work as a digital nomad on specific platforms? Create your own website. Okay, I think Kristin, you can start with that one. That's a good question for you because you know a lot about this.
Yeah, I think it's highly dependent on your remote work setting. Are you an entrepreneur, a freelancer, or do you work for a remote company as an employee? So those platforms can vary across companies, but there are remote platforms because it's all collaborating virtually or asynchronously, right? So that can be Zoom, that can be using project management tools like Asana, Basecamp. We're doing this right now via live stream. There's so many remote tools. The key is with remote is that everything is virtual, right? You're connecting using virtual means. So that's a lot of, like, for example, on my remote team, we were heavily, and now in my coaching, I use Google Docs. I love it. It's collaborative. You can work asynchronously. I actually like have a Google Doc for every one of my clients. and it just really allows for that remote collaboration. So this can really vary, but I'd say if you are looking to go remote, it's really getting familiar with these remote tools, especially if you'll be interviewing as on the employee side to join a remote company. It's gaining skills and learning these remote tools so that you can really thrive in a remote work setting.
Absolutely. And I think when you're looking for a remote job, if that's like really if that's what you're doing, one of the things that really helps is that if you're like familiar with some of these tools, like I think in my day-to-day life, one of the things that I do a lot is, for example, screen sharing. So I'm constantly using Loom and other. By the way, I sent some podcast episodes in the chat about family life, but about the tools, like learn the tools that we typically use in the digital nomad lifestyle. So communication tools, Slack, Google Meets, Zoom, those types of things, right? The screen sharing tool. So instead of sending a super long email with all your notes, just send a screen share of like 2 minutes and you can get like a lot of information, very specific. That works well. So those kind of things. So at Remote Rebellion, you can also have a very good look at their website on like what tools you kind of need to know. And I think, Kristin, you also have a resource around that? Maybe on your LinkedIn, do you have that pinned? Because I know that you have a big list.
I think I've created content around this, so probably on LinkedIn. But I will say I love Loom. Loom is such a clutch remote tool because you're so right that sharing verbally and with screen share is so valuable versus writing up a long explanation. So I would say Loom is such a great remote tool. Also things like even noise cancellation, right? Crisp is another tool. And again, like with digital nomad resources, remote tools keep emerging. So it's always cool to see what's coming up that's making this lifestyle and remote working easier.
Absolutely. And I really love that as well, because a lot of these tools are designed to make our remote life easier, to make your work life easier. So there's like the stuff for efficiency, but then there's also automations. Like I love Zapier, playing around with that, like those kinds of things. And also when you go techie, be kind with yourself, treat the tech like the way you want it to be treated too, because even hopping on this, we had some technical things because the stream link was gone and all that kind of stuff. And I am a very unfiltered person. I'm not going to be like, oh, this went like smooth. Like, no, it was a bit challenging, but hey, it's okay. Like, this is part of the nomad life as well. If we're going to get stressed about these things, if we want to throw our computer out. So I always say, keep reading, stay dehydrated, and be grateful. So there's actually 3 things. So that the tool is very important. Now, before we go, I just want to share a couple of things. So if you want to have more day-to-day information, stories, motivation, you can go to the Digital Nomads Daily Podcast. You can listen on Spotify, Apple, and all the other podcast platforms. I have 2 episodes a week coming out. I love it. There's interviews, and then I have the solo cast. If there's something very specific you want me to discuss on the solo cast, I can absolutely do that. I'm packing now because I'm going on a trip tomorrow. So I made an episode about packing. I was like, why not? I'm like here in my suitcase and everything. Let's go for it. So that's that. If you want to get bi-weekly tips on this lifestyle, you can go to digitalnomadsdaily.com/newsletter. I'm sending it out bi-weekly because I don't want to spam you guys, but this is just like digital nomad updates. It's very good to go there as well. When you just want like updates, motivation. So make sure you subscribe there as well. And talking about newsletters, Kristin is all about slow madding. I'm too, but she has a newsletter more focused on slow madding, which is really nice. Where can people subscribe for your newsletter?
Yeah, if you go to my website and resources, up top, you'll see a place to subscribe. And there I share about slow travel. I share about kind of resources for this lifestyle, tools. I always have a clutch travel item, so something you'll need on your digital nomad journey or slow mad journey. And then I also share tips for finding remote work. So those hacks for your job search journey and yeah, some other inspo that comes. I am a life and career coach, so I often go deep. So if you love the deepness, feel free to give a subscribe. And yeah, hopefully you get some valuable resources.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, Kristin, we're a little bit over time, but thank you so much for sticking around. And thank you so much for joining this experiment with me. This was so much fun. I'm stoked. Like, I want to do it again.
Yes, I loved it. And I love how we rolled with it and flexibility. Like I was saying at the start, this is our lifestyle. So when tech glitches happen, it's just like you go with it, and then we had a good time. So that's what matters.
Exactly. That's all what matters. All right, guys. If you have like questions, you can follow us on Instagram. Let me just drop the Instagram of you, Kristin, in here as well. Does it like, do you see that I'm like also on the computer and I'm trying not to move my head so much so it's not so noticeable?
You are a great multitasker, by the way. I give you so much credit. I am not the best multitasker, and I really respect how you manage this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I really love doing this. I'm like in my element right now. Okay. And the last link I'm gonna drop, that's us on Instagram. So DND on Instagram. I don't wear my glasses though, so I can't see from far what I'm writing. So there might be a few typos. I'm sorry, guys. All right. So all of that is coming true. Thanks everyone also who was here for your questions. This was really amazing. I loved it. I hope to see you again. All right, so I am gonna stop the live stream. Arrivederci. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.
Bye.